He just came in. They are with us now. Perfect. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this lovely Glasgow morning in the beautiful Calvin Gallery. My name is Freedom Kai Phillips. I'm Operations Director and a Legal Research Fellow for the Center for International Sustainable Development Law. And I would like to welcome you with the warmest of hearts to this 2021 Climate Law and Governance Day. I will be acting as one of your Zoom moderators and Operations Director for the day.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. It is my name is Antoinette Nestor. I'm one of the research associates as well as CISDL, and I'll be number one or number two, I would say, for Freedom. And now we go into Ayman, right? Yeah.
Thank you very much. I am Ayman Shakawi with the Lead Counsel for Climate Change at the Center for International Sustainable Development Law. I'm also Senior Manager for Strategic Development at the Mohammed VI Foundation for Environmental Protection. I'll be one of the Masters of Ceremony for today. At this point in time, in the context of this Climate Law and Governance Day 2021, it's my pleasure to give the floor to the co-chairs of the grand opening, Dr. Henry Lovat, who's a lecturer at the University of Glasgow, and Professor Marie-Claire Cordonier Segger, who's the Executive Secretary of the Climate Law and Governance Initiative, Senior Director of the Center for International Sustainable Development Law, and Leverhulme Trust Visiting Professor, University of Cambridge, Full Professor at University of Waterloo. Thank you.
Very warmest of thanks to our moderators and also our Masters of Ceremony. There's someone who is an unsung hero in any kind of event like this one, and I would like to recognize in particular Professor Giedre Bolus, I'm so bad with names, Joku Bauskaite, who has been our host the whole way through the organization of this event, which is a cooperation of momentous. I would not like to make her speak because she's asked not to, but she's here and incredibly important, both together with Ayman as Masters of Ceremony. As our colleagues have introduced us, I am Professor Marie-Claire Cordonier Segger, and I would like to thank you and welcome you to this Climate Law and Governance Day 2021, this global symposium being hosted by the University of Glasgow, together with the University of Cambridge and the Strathclyde University here in the UK, as the UK takes on the presidency of the Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It is an honor especially to be able to welcome our Right Honourable Lord Provost, to welcome our hosts here in Glasgow and at the University of Glasgow, to welcome some of the members of the judiciary and recent members of the judiciary who are here with us in the group, as well as to welcome the chairs of the Climate Law and Governance Initiative who are also here today, and all of you as speakers, guests, participants, registrants. This Climate Law and Governance Day Global Symposium is part of a tradition that began at McGill University in 2005 during COP11, just after the Kyoto Protocol had come into force. It has grown over time, and this special event that we will be witnessing today is an extremely inspiring and incredibly important sign of that growing interest and willingness to act that we see throughout all of our community. You are part of that, especially the volunteers and the students here today, and we thank you for it. It is a special pleasure to welcome you all, over 1,000 registrants, to this historic day, including the select 200 that we are permitted under pandemic restrictions to welcome in person. and also nearly 1,100 judges, professors, students, senior officials, practitioners, and leaders from across this entire community who are joining us from over 120 countries online. As we open this extraordinary gathering of the world's climate law and governance community, we face critical challenges which will define the next centuries of our civilization on Earth. The risks are real, and the science which interprets them is well recognized. For years, even as globalization gains speed, delivering equivocal benefits to millions, we have also been warned of emerging vulnerabilities. The future towards which we are heading under a business as usual scenario is unsurvivable. Our students have joined activists, scientists, and many others, including many of our own children, in climate change circles, including in the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change regime, but also in the streets, to decry the risks and realities of this global climate crisis, with extreme weather events increasing, glaciers melting, sea levels rising, corals bleaching, droughts and desertification spreading famine and driving millions into greater insecurity. The place where I was raised, Victoria, on a tiny island on the west coast of Canada, is facing wildfires. In the very forests we fought to protect when I was a student at university. Humanity's capacity to adopt and implement sustainable energies, carbon negative infrastructure, technology and lifestyle transformations, and nature-based solutions in time is very far from certain. When the country celebrated the passage of the Paris Agreement on climate change under the UNFCCC in December 2015 in Paris, and its rapid entry into force later in Marrakesh, Morocco, just a year, a certain sense of constrained optimism permeated the plans of government authorities, international organizations, and business communities, even our academic and civil society circles. Nearly 5 years or more have passed since Paris, however, and while the grand majority of signatories have embarked with determination on the difficult task of designing and registering their nationally determined contributions and mobilizing domestic reforms, discovering both pitfalls and plateaus, national experiences to date offer cause for both cautious optimism and also increasingly profound concern. In part, this is because the implementation of the Paris Agreement is not just an environmental or economic challenge, it is a development challenge, responding directly to the world's sustainable development goals. The SDGs themselves may be soft law, aspirational and voluntary targets adopted to facilitate more coordinated international and domestic action. But vast networks of binding international treaties and organizations, including practices of the UNFCCC, its Paris Agreement, and implementing entities such as the Green Climate Fund, are part of the SDGs commitment. And at this moment of equal crucial importance, myriad national and local regulatory bodies across all spheres of human activity are struggling to meet Sustainable Development Goal 13 on climate change and all of the other related SDGs. As we open this global day, and indeed an entire global program of linked COP26 Climate Law and Governance Initiative events, co-hosted by over 200 partners, many of whom are here with us in the room or online, we face a sobering reality, one worthy of new research, new teaching, and incredibly exponentially increased action on all levels. Civilization has reached a crossroads, with the global economy, nature, and humanity depending on what is still an ambivalent capacity for compliance with our climate change commitments. A carefully crafted compromise, the Paris Agreement is predominantly a pledge and review commitment with a core triangle of obligations: nationally determined contributions, adaptation, mitigation, backed by significant and additional finance, secured by transparent monitoring and reporting. Implementation of this agreement across all countries remains a critical challenge, and each facet of these requirements demand embedded domestic capacity, which remains limited in many jurisdictions. 169 of 186 first-round NDCs registered to the UNFCCC Secretariat by the parties explicitly prioritize legal and institutional reform in their plans to contribute to the global response to climate change. Studies, including those being shared by colleagues here in this symposium, have identified over 1,800 national laws and policies set in place to address climate change, and there is a great deal to be learned from these recent innovations. Diverse, carefully tailored, effective public policy and legal measures are now desperately needed to address widely differing national circumstances and to move toward a net zero economy in time. Early this week in Glasgow, COP26, the world renewed our commitment to provide $100 billion per year toward climate action. And further assets of over 130 trillion are being aligned with the Paris Agreement. But effective, accountable, national and international law on climate change, especially to support Paris Agreement implementation, has never been more important, especially as countries struggle to set measures in place to speed economic recovery from the global COVID-19 pandemic. New knowledge is needed for drafting, adoption, and enforcement of policy, regulatory, and institutional frameworks, not to mention contracts, commercial, and investment rules, and the recent surge in strategic human rights claims and other climate litigation worldwide. The enormity of the challenge that we face as we open this day, especially for our disciplines and professions, is clear. With 186 UNFCCC parties requiring urgent legal and institutional reform to implement their Paris Agreement commitments, and only a few qualified lawyers available to assist each country with that 130 trillion, a capacity chasm gapes in our path ahead. We need to work together in partnership with the world's leading universities, international organizations, all institutions, academic publishers, law and policy journals, law firms, and everyone here in this room, especially our students who shape the present and the future, in order to bridge the law and governance knowledge and capacity gap. Indeed, in each country and region of the world, hundreds, perhaps thousands of capable, informed jurists specialized in these multiple fields that touch on climate change are desperately needing to bridge the gaping capacity chasm, to make our contributions to the profound transition which we face. The best and the brightest of our law students from all countries and from the world's leading centers of global education and research face in particular a critical opportunity to make a decisive contribution to the highest possible ambition in our global response to climate change. It is an honor to open this conference. I will be chairing you throughout the day and helping to guide you together with our Masters of Ceremony, Professor Gigi, and also Advocate Ayman Cherkaoui, and our online Masters of Ceremony, Freedom Kai and Antoinette. I'm looking very much forward to seeing all of you in the upcoming 16 substantive sessions and the 3 very fascinating high-level plenaries. And I will turn over now to our chair and of course my longstanding friend and colleague, Dr. Henry Lovat from the University of Glasgow, to ensure that you all have a proper welcome to Glasgow.
Thank you very much, Marie-Claire. When we first met very many years ago, I did not imagine that we'd be standing here today in this beautiful hall in the University of Glasgow, you know, with such a wonderful sort of range of participants to discuss these vitally important topics. My name is Henry Lovat. I'm a lecturer in international law and politics and School of Law at the university here. My role is really twofold. One, to thank all of you for coming, to thank our wonderful partners who've helped bring us together. Primarily, of course, the Climate Law and Governance Initiative, the Centre for Sustainable Development Law, based out of Montreal, and of course, all the multifarious session hosts and others listed here today. My second role is to introduce you all to University of Glasgow and to our wonderful opening speakers here. We have my good friends, the Lord Provost Philip Braat from the City of Glasgow itself, Professor Peter Jackson, Peter Jackson from the Scottish Council on Global Affairs, and Professor Graham Roy, who's Dean in the College of Social Sciences here at the University, to say a few words. Glasgow was a university with a dual mission, both civic and global. And I have no doubt that in bringing the city together with the global community here to discuss climate law and governance, we are doing justice to that dual mission. On that note, I invite Lord Provost Philip Braat to say a few words.
Thank you, Dr. Lovat. And first, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, may I thank you very kindly for this very lovely invite, because it's truly a pleasure to be here with you this morning, back at my alma mater, to welcome you to Glasgow. And little did I know, all those years ago when I was studying for my own law degree here, that the world would turn its attention to my hometown in the search for climate action. And I am particularly pleased to be with you because that is precisely the role that your initiative serves. And in this increasingly turbulent time, it is vital that we have precisely this kind of knowledge sharing and networking to address our shared challenges. Because we know that the questions posed by climate change are novel, but they are not unique. And they require us all to pool our collective knowledge and experience to tackle these challenges head on. The 26 years since COP began have been marked by disjointed and uncoordinated climate action. Of course, that is before they came to Glasgow. So it is our fervent hope that our city is a turning point in that journey. After the TV sound bites of the last few days, it may sound somewhat trite to say so, but it is nevertheless true. The time of talking will soon be over. It is now time for action. And what better place than Glasgow to achieve that? We are a city on the front foot, and one that has been leading the way for a very long time now. The Prime Minister even noted that Glasgow was the home to James Watt, the inventor of what he termed the doomsday machine, the Watt steam engine, which quite literally drove forward the Industrial Revolution. However, what he did not mention is the work going on right now. Even the institution that we are sitting in right now is home to some of the most significant and greatest innovations of our time. Just as the Watt steam engine drove the Industrial Revolution forward, and Adam Smith, a former professor here, gave birth to modern markets economics, it is universities such as Glasgow, Strathclyde, and Caledonian that are charting the way forward towards a net zero future. It is the University of Glasgow, working with Strathclyde, the Scottish Government, and other stakeholders, who are pioneering an approach to retrofit Glasgow's beautiful architecture, and particularly our Victorian architecture, to comply with our net zero obligations. Academics from this university work closely with officers from Glasgow City Council to bring jobs and prosperity to our communities and to develop and enhance our plans for climate action. And Glasgow Caledonian University is host to the Centre for Climate Justice, constantly reminding us that climate action needs to tackle the inequalities that climate change has exposed. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, helping to drive and design our policies to help everyone in our community to prosper. Without these resources, without these anchors, we could not achieve the goals we have set for ourselves. Indeed, Glasgow was the very first city in the United Kingdom to declare both a climate as well as an ecological emergency back in 2019. Whilst we are, of course, very proud of that commitment, we know that it must be backed up by action. Action by central government, action by local government, action by all of us here today. That is why I'm delighted to welcome you. And I hope that your discussions here today and for the rest of the time you spend with us here in Glasgow are a great success. A great success, not for me, a great success not even for you, but a great success for the generations that will follow us. The generations who will either pay the price or reap the rewards of the decisions that we make today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I apologize to those who could not understand anything I said with my Glasgow accent. I also apologize for the slightly cold weather outside. We have been extremely unfortunate. For those of you who have travelled far and wide to be with us, you can ask any Glaswegian, they will back me up on this, won't you? At least 11 months out of 12, Glasgow is extremely sunny and very warm. We have just been very unlucky today. But on a serious note, even though I cannot promise the very warm weather in Glasgow each and every day, one thing that I can promise is that when you come to Glasgow and you meet and speak with the people of Glasgow, who are ultimately our greatest asset, I guarantee you that you will receive the warmest, the most hospitable and generous of welcomes that you can receive in this world. And we are, of course, extremely proud as a city to be able to host COP26. There is an existential problem that we need to address. And I personally want to wake up on the morning of the 13th of November, reading headlines that state that Glasgow has been instrumental in delivering a durable agreement that will leave a sustainable planet for our future generations. And if we do get that durable agreement, and let's be selfish, call it the Glasgow Agreement, and if you do get that agreement, it will be in no small part due to the hard work of people like you here today and those people who are watching us online. And if we do get that Glasgow Agreement and we do leave a sustainable planet for our future generation, then that will be your victory, but it will be a victory for all of us. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for this very kind invite to speak with you this morning and to give you a civic welcome to our great city of Glasgow. Now that you are here in Glasgow, you are honorary Glaswegians for life. With that, there are rights, but there are also obligations. And one of the most key obligations is that you must come back to Glasgow with your friends and family often and soon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. This on? Thank you, Philip, for your time. And as things go already, there's a lot to do and not much time to do it in. Could I invite my good friend, Professor Peter Jackson, to say a few words, moving on from Glasgow to the Scottish Council in Global Affairs. And Philip, you have to run. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming this morning. This is a brilliant event. I'm so impressed with all of the work that's gone into putting this event together. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I want to say a few words this morning very quickly about a new initiative in which I'm involved to establish an institute, the formal title of which will be the Scottish Council on Global Affairs, to serve as, I suppose, an intellectual and social and even in some ways, I hope, academic home for work that takes place in the field of international relations broadly defined across Scotland in a wider network with the rest of the UK, Europe, and the world. It's because I think, and something I've learned since I've been here, Scotland really needs some kind of hub to marshal the formidable expertise that exists both in universities, but also in the third sector, in the public sphere, to bring together voices interested in international affairs for three reasons, really. I think the first would be to provide a much needed institutional framework to facilitate and amplify the interesting work that's going on in international relations in Scotland now, but also, I think, to serve as a hub to put that expertise at the service of public policy, firstly, but also to serve as a hub to engage in a public-facing way with Scottish civil society to lift the level of debate on international affairs broadly defined in Scotland as a whole. Thirdly, we aim and have already begun to forge partnerships with cognate civil society, think tank institutions in the United Kingdom, across Europe and the world. And in this way, I think probably provide a wider audience and, if you like, a force multiplier for the interesting multidisciplinary research that's going on into international politics here. And I think probably this conference is a fantastic example of how important it is to bring these different perspectives together, because I don't think it's said enough that the success for these negotiations that are going on in Glasgow and that are going to have been ongoing for decades and will continue, a lot of it will depend on old-fashioned diplomatic negotiations. And that's something I think we forget. Protest has its place, no doubt. There's a role for civil society, but experts sitting around tables in rooms will actually make these agreements happen. And that is, I think, something that experts in foreign policy and environmental policy and law and all manner of governance and economics as well we could all contribute. And this is the idea behind this council. And we're very excited to be launching it. Our formal partners, the Royal Society of Edinburgh, the University of Edinburgh, the University of Glasgow, and the University of St. Andrews. We very much hope to expand this network of founding partners to include other kinds of institutions, academic and otherwise, across Scotland. And we have divided our work into, well, divided is one way of putting it, organized into 6 broad themes: human rights, immigration, migration and refugees, foreign policy, peace building, conflict resolution, international law, trade, global governance, defense and security, where my own expertise, I think, lies, global public health, international development, climate change, sustainability, fisheries and energy. But it's our expectation that the most important work, the work that we want to back, will cut across some, perhaps even all of these different areas of research and engagement. It's a great pleasure to be here. I hope that we have a chance to meet many of you. We're very keen to engage with people across the gamut of civil society, university institutions and government here and elsewhere. And that's all I have to say this morning. But thanks again, Henry, for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Peter. And that's Professor Graham Roy.
Distinguished guests, colleagues and friends, welcome to the University of Glasgow, this Climate Law and Governance Day 2021. I'm Graham Roy, I'm Dean of External Engagement in the College of Social Sciences here at the University of Glasgow. I'm delighted to be able to be the host for this reception here in the wonderful Kelvin Gallery. The University of Glasgow is delighted to play a key part in COP26, in acting as a platform for debate, discussion and challenge. And today's conference is an important part of that programme. Looking through the programme, the issues that you'll be discussing today around operationalising multilateral agreements, securing resilience and climate justice, testing and innovating governance instruments, and developing the legal frameworks to support the financial investments we need to secure net zero are all crucial to that future. It's my final role just to say thank you to a number of people who have helped make this day happen. We've heard already Marie-Claire, Henry, Gigi and Suzanne, the various sponsors for this day, our 2 partner universities, University of Cambridge and University of Strathclyde. One group I'd like to highlight in particular are our student volunteers who've helped to make this day possible. You see them sitting around today, and if you would permit me and join me in a round of applause for them. Thank you very much. Now, I'm conscious that you have a very busy day. I am the last person keeping you from getting started. So I hope you have an enjoyable and challenging discussion and I look forward to seeing you all tonight at the Huntailing Gallery for the final reception. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. I must thank our speakers from the city. I think Phillips had to run to his next engagement. Peter and Graham for joining us. Thank you to all for being here in person. I will now pass over to Mary Claire to bring in our international and online guests.
Thank you very much, Henry. And I can tell this is going to be a fascinating day. In order to help to welcome us on behalf of the International Program Committee, that together with many, many others joins us in organizing this day, I'd like to first, of course, start with our own Vice-Chancellor at the University of Cambridge, Professor Stephen Toope, who has sent a brief but very inspiring video. And then I would like to ask if while Stephen Toope's video is playing, and Lord Jonathan Mance, who is waiting online to be able to welcome you on behalf of the International Law Association, perhaps I could invite Christina Voigt and Wendy Miles and Michael Strauss, each of whom represent an incredibly important community that has come together to make this day possible, to come and join us up on the panel. So we will play the video from Stephen, we will thank our Glaswegian hosts, and we will ask Wendy and Christina and also Michael to join us. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, it's my privilege to welcome you on behalf of the University of Cambridge to a very special series of international events on law and governance related to climate change. As the United Kingdom prepares for COP26, we're honored to co-host the academic pre-conference event on climate change, the SDGs, and the law, as well as the Climate Law and Governance Day during COP itself. Together with our partners, the University of Glasgow and Strathclyde University. As leading international negotiators, practitioners, experts and scholars, and students from around the world prepare to meet in Glasgow for the most consequential climate talks of recent years, I'm delighted that our university can step up to promote scholarly dialogue, to find new solutions, and especially to help educate present and future generations of leaders. The challenge of raising climate ambition while ensuring a rapid and equitable pandemic recovery is both urgent and daunting. While the start of COP26 is a cause for celebration, there's no margin for error in Glasgow. Climate heating effects are already destabilizing communities, economies, and ecosystems. Meanwhile, the continuing COVID-19 pandemic, sparing no country, continues to test our healthcare systems as the global death toll surpasses an unimaginable 4.5 million people. With the world on a trajectory of catastrophic heating that will only exacerbate inequalities, a drastic course correction is needed. The choice is clear. We can rethink the unsustainable norms and practices ingrained within our social and economic models, or submit to the justice challenge of our century. As these critical next weeks will highlight, legal tools and governance frameworks at local, national, and international levels provide both obstacles and opportunities in responding to climate challenges. Now more than ever, there's a need to build collaborations and amplify ideas that advance the implementation of the Paris Agreement and the Global Sustainable Development Goals. To this end, universities must embrace our decisive role in accelerating the development of law and policy innovation. We must do this while empowering actors across sectors and levels of government to understand, shape, and leverage the role of law in climate mitigation, finance, adaptation, and resilience. Through events like these, I am proud that the University of Cambridge, in lockstep with our hundreds of COP26 partners, stands firm in its commitment to fostering bold climate solutions. I'm hopeful that our efforts will support a growing community of practice in this field, yielding pivotal solutions for sustained climate action well beyond COP26. I want to extend my special congratulations to the committed Cambridge, Glasgow, and Strathclyde scholars and student volunteers. I'm deeply encouraged and inspired by your work. We must put the voices of young people at the center of discussions and decisions about the future that they will inherit. I must also congratulate the diverse interdisciplinary body of professors, scholars, practitioners, and experts joining us in all aspects of this program, as well as the numerous partners in the UK and worldwide, including the Leverhulme Trust, who've generously contributed to this event. In closing, I want to reflect on the fact that all participants today, as well as those participating over the next few days and during COP, are powerful agents, not passive bystanders. We each play an important role in facilitating a much-needed exchange of knowledge and in helping to strengthen legal capacity on climate change. Your engagement today is implementing the Paris Agreement. I invite all of us to capitalize on this opportunity to imagine the law and policy contours of a better world for future generations. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was our Vice-Chancellor at Cambridge. And I think you know he's behind us in everything we're doing. I'd like to now also welcome online joining us, the Right Honourable Lord Jonathan Mance, who is chair of the International Law Association that has helped us to create and lead this day throughout the years since its founding. Lord Mance.
Distinguished guests and participants, as chair of the ILA, I'm delighted to welcome you at the start of this important day. Let me also congratulate the co-hosts, the 3 universities, as well as the many supporting organizations. The day highlights the role which the law can and must play in countering an impending climate change disaster. Law, of course, here includes domestic law. Witness the UK government, the Supreme Court's 2015 judgment ordering the UK government immediately to reduce nitrogen dioxide emissions to within statutorily permitted limits. Even more dramatically, witness the May 2021 Hague District Court judgment ordering Shell to reduce its global net carbon emissions by 45% by 2030 compared to 2019 levels, a decision which Shell is seeking to overturn on appeal. Very fundamentally, though, law includes international law, which is the focus of today and of the association I chair. The ILA was founded in 1873 in Brussels to clarify, develop, and promote international law. It's currently headquartered in London, and it has worldwide branches and a membership of some 4,500. You're very welcome. It organizes biennial conferences, and its work has led to many significant recommendations and conventions. We have a flourishing scholarship program to bridge the capacity chasm of which Professor Marie-Claire Cordonier Segger spoke a moment ago. The voices of young people, of whom the Vice-Chancellor spoke, are critical. As this conference witnesses, international law is crucial in the combating of climate change. From the Rio Convention to the Paris Agreement of 2015 and now on to COP26 to make more specific individual states' role and duties, to resolve what the economists last week called the cognitive dissonance of the Paris Agreement when it set ambitious global targets to which almost everyone could sign up, while individual states committed themselves voluntarily to nationally determined contributions that offered too little to meet the targets and which they are struggling to improve. The ILA has in successive reports looked at the international legal principles governing sustainable development and the struggle against climate change. First, in its 2002 New Delhi Declaration of Principles Relating to Sustainable Development, it had the father of the Constitution of Bangladesh, Dr. Kamal Hussain, in the chair, and Professor, now Senator Nico Schreiber from the Netherlands as reporter. 2 distinguished contributors from countries both in the front line of climate change. Second, at The Hague in 2014, the ILA built on this foundation with a report directly addressing the legal principles relating to climate change, the common concern of humankind. and it underlined the need for an integrated, equitable balancing of the interests involved and highlighted the duty so critical at COP26 of states to be prepared constantly to update their thinking and targets. And thirdly, at its recent 79th or Kyoto Biennial Conference in 2020, the ILA adopted guidelines on the role of international law in the sustainable management of natural resources development, formulated by a committee with Professor Nico Schreiber now as chair and Professor Cordonier Segger as rapporteur. The conference was held remotely due to the pandemic, to benefit no doubt to the environment, even though COP requires direct contact, if only for arm twisting. The 2020 guidelines aim to synthesize the legal learning and the lessons conveyed by past instruments and reports, and emphasize a holistic approach, recognizing that all aspects of our treatment of the world in which we live interrelate and potentially combine to affect the climate. That is, our treatment of the environment, land, oceans, atmosphere, and space, our treatment of animals, organisms, trees, and plants, and also our treatment of each other in war or peace, and by maintaining human rights, law and order, good governance, transparency, and access to justice. We know that in all these respects, we have to act now, even though it may be painful. And states are not the only actor. States are a human construct, and they act or fail to act because of human decisions. COP26 has already shown that the power of financial markets and institutions can be harnessed by individual action. The more we as individuals urge states to adhere to a sound, sustainable approach, the more we must recognize that it is our individual responsibility to act to the same end in our personal lives. I know that is a message that everyone at COP26 carries. An extraordinarily rich program awaits all attending this day, and it is a privilege to be able to say these preliminary words about the relevance of the law. Thank you.
Are due to Lord Mance. We have with us some of the chairs of our upcoming plenaries and some of the organizers and hosts of our upcoming sessions who have been very important in engaging with us on the program committee. And I will just ask Professor Christina Voigt, who is of course chair of the IUCN's World Commission on Environmental Law, that has been with us right from the beginning on these days as well as the advocate Wendy Miles QC, who is one of the representatives of the Net Zero Lawyers Alliance that has been created in the preparations of this COP and will be stretching into the future in their work, as well as a representative of all of the international financial institutions that have been with us since the beginning of this day. Michael Strauss, an advocate and general counsel of the EBRD, who have been steadfast in their engagement and support right from the start. Christina.
Thank you so much, Marie-Claire, and my heartfelt congratulations for this yet another wonderful Global Climate Law and Governance Day. On behalf of the IUCN World Commission on Environmental Law, it's a great, great pleasure to tell you that we are proud to partner with you on this event. Let me say just a few words about why this event is so important and why law and legal frameworks are so crucial in implementing the Paris Agreement. Well, in order to meet the temperature guardrails in the Paris Agreement, we know greenhouse gas emissions have to be cut drastically, rapidly, and sustained. And this presents us with unprecedented challenges. The unprecedented challenge of transformative changes across all sectors, across everything we do. And these changes have to be global, they have to be fast, they have to be effective, and they have to be fair. And in this situation, law is the governance tool, is the lever to translate what needs to be done into real action. And that is happening through at least three elements. One is robust, effective, and fair laws and regulations, but also decision-making processes and access to information and access to justice that gives equal possibilities to everyone. And finally, of course, the absolutely crucial role of the judiciary in bringing about this change. What we need are lawyers from all corners of the legal community. We need practicing lawyers, judges, academics, civil servants, company lawyers, diplomats, lawmakers, and so forth. And we need everyone who can make a change from all corners of the world, from all countries, all levels, ages, gender, and career steps. It is great to see so many here today, and I'm very much looking forward to the discussions today. Thank you so much.
So on behalf of, hello, so my name's Wendy Miles, and on behalf of the investment sort of plenary stream here, which I'm chairing, I want to fold in what we also need for transition, and that's money. Lots and lots of money. So 130 trillion is the number that we heard on Finance Day. The financial institutions have said, this is what we need, this is what we have, this is what we can mobilize, but we need to find the investments. So the lawyers that Christina talks about, the public international lawyers, human rights lawyers, public interest lawyers governmental lawyers have played such an important role at getting us here. And now we need to deploy that capital in, as Christina says, a fair and equitable way. And so we've mobilized the commercial lawyers, the commercial law firms in the Net Zero Lawyers Alliance. We want it to grow internationally. There's enormous appetite to grow, but you know what? We've mobilized the army to help, and they are here to listen, because they can't fix us. They have tools, but they need to understand the multidimensional elements. So the only shame about today is that we are split into plenaries, but there's so much to cover. It's the only way to do it. But do step into the investment plenary if you have time, and do speak, because the commercial lawyers are here to help, but most importantly, here to listen.
That seems... It seems the International Financial Institution goes right after the plea for money, which I think is appropriate enough. Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, partners and friends. In the face of the challenge of succeeding such an incomparable group of speakers, let me just say it's a pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development to the Climate Law and Governance Day. It's a privilege and an honor to have the opportunity to address you here in the historic hall. It seems especially appropriate considering that we're discussing the threat of a warming planet in a venue named after the man who invented the international system we use to measure temperature, Lord Kelvin. Of course, I say we, but as you can hear, I'm an American, and so we use a rather quaint way of measuring temperature in the United States that's not exactly the same. But let me just give thanks first to the organizers of the Climate Law and Governance Day, in particular, Dr. Marie-Claire Cordonier Segger and Dr. Henley Lovat from the University of Glasgow for putting this together for this year. The critical initiative is a platform to build a community of like-minded policy and legal professionals who share the same vision and who have chosen to apply their knowledge and expertise towards the building of a more sustainable, just, and resilient future. I'm proud to say that the EBRD is supporting this legal conference for the 6th consecutive year. And indeed, it has done so since its inception. It's truly remarkable to me to see the the Climate Law and Governance Initiative grow in these short 6 years to become a cornerstone of the COP calendar. And it showcases year after year the importance of law and the crucial contribution of legal professionals towards achieving the Paris goals. So congratulations to everyone listening who's made this happen, and those who are not in the legal profession, please remember this the next time you're tempted to make a joke about lawyers. Now, we all know that reflexively that climate change is global in its reach, but many of the EBRD's countries of operations are particularly vulnerable to climate change. And yet, at the same time, the EBRD operates in some of the most carbon-intensive regions in the world. This double bind explains why sustainable development and environmentally sound investment have been at the heart of the EBRD's mandate from its founding at the end of the Cold War, and why the capacity to carry out environmental programs was explicitly permitted in the EBRD's founding agreement. Accordingly, each EBRD project integrates the robust environmental and social requirements of our environmental and social policy. And the EBRD has gone one step further recently by strengthening its position as a leader in green and climate finance by adopting an ambitious plan to become a majority green bank by 2025. The EBRD governors also recently approved a resolution that all EBRD activities will be fully Paris aligned no later than the beginning of 2023. There's something finally that I'd like to note unique about what we lawyers bring to this problem of climate change. We recognize that tackling climate change is not only a matter of financing and policy, but it's also an issue of justice. The impacts of climate change are pervasive and raise many scientific, political, economic, and financial questions, to be sure, but inherently they also raise questions about equity and responsibility. Much as Nobel Prize winner Amartya Sen saw development as a sort of guarantee of key freedoms, we can also see the ways that climate change undermines a range of human rights, including those to life, water and sanitation, food, health, housing, self-determination, culture, and development. As we invest in our countries of operations, we aim to ensure that no one is left behind in the transition away from fossil fuels, also known as the just transition. So the inescapable zeitgeist here from the events in Glasgow is that time is running out to make the changes that were agreed 6 years ago. We lawyers especially recognize that underpinning the effort to meet the Paris objectives, there must be a society-wide transformation of norms and rules. The task, in other words, has to rest on a substructure of clear and impelling policy, legal, and regulatory boundaries and signals. So perhaps think of this as a call to action for lawyers across the legal disciplines: environmental, international, financial, human rights, litigation, to make their contribution, mobilize their experts, and prompt private and public players into action. This is what we feel we can uniquely contribute to the Climate Law and Governance Day. I look forward to a day full of stimulating discussions, and I hope you get the most out of the various expert roundtables and workshops. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. And of course, you are just a little bit too humble, which is not something a Canadian often says to American. And in particular, I would like to just highlight that, of course, we have some quite special awards that are given out at Climate Law and Governance Day for global climate leadership. And together with Veselina Haralampyeva, who is sitting in the front row, Michael as General Counsel, together with Anne-Marie Burkitt, the previous General Counsel, was one of the first winners of the General Counsel Award. Wendy Miles, who is also very humble, was one of the winners of the Private Law Partners Award for her leading work as a counsel. So I would like to especially thank you. And Christina, you're on notice. I'm going to ask for Douglas Lees to join us online as General Counsel of the Green Climate Fund, while I invite two of the leading judges, Christina referred to the judiciary and their role, to come and join us here. We have about another 10 minutes for this plenary because we started a bit late, so we're cutting into the break, and then everyone will be going to their sessions, which are the heart and core of the Climate Law and Governance Day, hosted by all of our 16 sets of partners. So thank you, Christina. Thank you also, Wendy, and thank you especially also, Michael. And we're making sure that Douglas is not on mute.
Yes, are you hearing me, Marie?
We are. And
okay.
Lord Carnwath and Judge Antonio Benjamin are joining me on the panel, but please go ahead and make your opening statement.
Okay, well, I'm pleased to be here this morning, albeit where I am is early evening. But the virtual presence is that I'm there with you in the morning, and among the distinguished guests, some of whom I recognize from my days Solicitor General in Jamaica, sitting in the Privy Council. It's good to see them back here again. Michael, my good friend, Wendy, and yourself. I wanted to speak on the theme this afternoon of the global response, legal global response to climate change. And this is the theme of this plenary. And in that context, I would like to look at the legal and institutional foundations for higher ambition on climate change worldwide. How can law and governance help to accelerate the implementation of the Paris Agreement? Now, I want to spend the next 5 minutes just looking through the GCF spectacles, that's the Green Climate Fund, at a snapshot of what we are doing and how we can achieve these objectives. As we are all aware, the Green Climate Fund is the world's largest dedicated primary climate fund and is the primary financing mechanism under the Paris Agreement, with a mandate to assist developing countries through a country-driven approach to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and to enhance their ability to respond to climate change in line with the Paris Agreement. The truth is that we operate in a context of other development institutions with similar mandates. We all have mandates of addressing the issue of climate change, some with an exclusive mandate, others with a non-exclusive mandate. If we are truly to be effective in realizing our respective mandates, then we cannot go it alone. The GCF has long recognized this and is committed to ensuring that our activities complement those of other funds. This is one way in which we can rapidly realize our high ambition. We seek to achieve this through complementarity and coherence. In this context, we complement the activities of other funds and do not attempt to replicate them. This results in a coherent approach to support the climate ambitions of our clients. Complementarity in this context refers to the synergies among the various climate funds, activities with similar sectors, themes such as adaptation and mitigation, and even across regions with similar characteristics, with the aim of scaling up transformative actions. Coherence is about using country programming to seek alignment with national determined contributions and national adaptation plans. The GCF works with the Adaptation Fund, the Climate Investment Funds, and the Global Environmental Facility to maximize the impact of our activities. We also work with a number of multilateral development institutions, as well as regional and national development institutions. GCF achieves complementarity and coherence by identifying opportunities to complement activities funded by other climate funds and increase impact by strengthening long-term country-driven planning and partnership with national designated authorities and GCF accredited entities. With a range of flexible financial instruments that respond to specific investment contexts and market barriers, GCF can increase funding and scale up projects and programs. We collaborate with the Adaptation Fund, the CIFs, and the Global Environmental Facility to help countries access climate finance and enhance climate resilience. We also act as an accelerator through our ability to de-risk projects by expanding and attracting additional investment from the private and public sectors using a range of financial instruments such as grant, loans, equity, and guarantees. Programming is also another modality used by the GCF. It cooperates with other climate funds, sharing lessons learned to develop customized umbrella thematic programs. GCF builds on the capacities of country actors so that they themselves can synchronize investments across various climate finance mechanisms. I'll now just briefly touch on the governance structure of the GCF. It is one which consists of 24 members, 12 from developing countries and 12 from developed countries. It has a secretariat which is answerable to the board. Decisions are consensus-based, but there's a provision in the rules that if consensus cannot be achieved, decisions can be put to a vote. And for any decision which is put to a vote, it must contain a supermajority of 4/5 of the members voting who must vote in favor of the decision before it is recognized. This ensures that there is a healthy mix of developing and developed country representatives voting for the decision. The governance structure. Yes,
Douglas, can I ask you to summarize in just another minute or so, because we're going to be chased out of our room soon for the session starting.
Thank you, Marie. I will do that. Another feature is the governance the governance structure, which consists of 3 independent units, which is mandated in its governing instrument, which those units report directly to the board. There's the integrity unit, investigates corruption, fraud, sexual harassment, other kinds of misconduct. There is the evaluation unit, which looks at the effectiveness of policies and informs the board, which then takes those lessons into consideration in developing further policies. And there is the redress mechanism, which also assists in looking at claims from Indigenous peoples, third-party communities, which are claiming injury because of GCF projects. That gives an overall of the governance structure. And I think that's the direction which we have to chart if we're really going to make this impact and the global response to climate change. These are the models which I think we'll have to follow. I wish to thank you for your patience in listening to me, and I'm sorry that I went a bit over time. Over.
Thank you very much, Douglas. And thank you especially for the engagement of the Green Climate Fund all the way through Climate Law and Governance Day, and for being kind enough to join us online from what is clearly a completely different time zone for those brief welcoming remarks. I know you'll be on several of the panels today, again, booming in from South Korea, from the GCF headquarters, and we welcome you. I would now like to invite our last two welcoming remarks, who are of course incredibly important members of the climate law and governance community. Antonio Benjamin, Judge of the National High Court of Brazil and the former chair of the World Commission on Environmental Laws of the IUCN, and my supposed initial co-chair for this session, which has been shortened in order to allow you to get to your substantive panels and workshops, the Right Honourable Lord Robert Carnwath, who of course not only is an honorary fellow of Trinity College, Cambridge, and also an honorary professor at the University College of London, but is of course a former UK Supreme Court Justice here in the UK. So thank you very much, both of you, for being here with us for the day, and thank you especially for being willing to welcome everyone.
Good morning. In fact, good day to all those that are here and those that are connected from different parts of the world. In 2016, in Rio de Janeiro, we established the Global Judicial Institute on the Environment with colleagues from Supreme Courts from around the world, senior judges, and among them, my colleague and friend, Lord Robert Carnwath. We judges, as you know, by nature have to have close connections with law schools and law. However, in respect to climate change, the connection is of a different nature. We tend to see ourselves as the keepers of the legal status quo, which is not bad in itself. It's part of our constitutional mandate. However, often this role as keepers of the status quo leads us to territory that are unconstitutional. When we are so adapted to the past status quo and the one that had already been changed, even by constitutional provisions, that we become not the keepers of the legal status quo, but the keepers of the ancien regime. And this is very problematic in an area of law that is changing very rapidly. We are building it here. Later on in the program, we'll be discussing in the different panels that Marie-Claire and the wonderful team that I would like to congratulate put together several aspects of this relationship between we judges and climate law. But it is important that you at least understand one fundamental aspect of this relationship. It's not the same type of relationship that we have with other legal disciplines. Because for the very first time in history, especially in civil law countries, we judges are not waiting until the law and the cases arrive to our desks. And then we have to study those laws. But we are part of the dialogue, the academic dialogue around the development of this new legal discipline. So with that, congratulations, Marie-Claire, especially the students, the volunteers, the law professors, the institutions that are co-hosts of this event, and congratulations to all of you that are here. Many thanks.
That work? Yes. My role is to close the opening. Can I just say how amazing it is to see real people out there? I mean, I assume you are real people, but I don't know about you, but I'm zoomed out. I seem to be party to so many webinars and Zoom conferences and whatnot over the last year. And it's been, I mean, there was one a couple of months ago with India, where I was told there were 20,000 people listening in, and I couldn't see anyone. And who they were, what they were doing, I don't know. But to see real people is such a joy. So welcome to that. And I think great applause for actually getting here. But apart from that, I've already got nothing to add to what's been said. I come here as a representative of the United Kingdom Supreme Court. I'm very proud to be, in a sense, coming home. We've done many cases relating to Scotland. I'm also coming home in a rather more personal sense, because as some of you may know, my name, Carnwath, comes from a village some 30 miles from here, and my telephone is now going off, and I will shut it up. But my ancestors came from this part of the world some 300 years ago, and so I'm very pleased to be coming home. So I'll stop this and welcome you all to the closing of the opening.
But you had to be short. That was wonderful. I'd like to ask our Masters of Ceremonies, Advocate Ayman Chakawi, together with Dr. Gigi, to stand up and just explain to people where we will be going for the rest of this incredibly rich and substantive day, with all thanks to Lord Carnwath and also to Justice Antonio Benjamin, my old friend, for being here with us and helping to move this forward.
Thank you very much. Earlier, the Right Honourable Lord Provost, Philip Braat, was wondering about how he'd feel when he would wake up on November 13th. Regardless of the outcome, what I'm absolutely sure is that we'd feel particularly grateful for the tremendous welcome that the city has afforded us. One also important element I wanted to share with you in regarding this positive feeling that we have for COP26 is the fact that yesterday morning, the International Energy Agency compiled the pledges that had been made so far, and as an outcome of that analysis, indicated that currently, if all the pledges are fulfilled, would be on a path to a warming of 1.8 degrees Celsius, which is within the parameters of the Paris Agreement. However, climate law and governance as a topic, as a commitment, as a calling, has an important role to play regarding this particular objective. First, in terms of ensuring that those pledges turns into reality, and second, in terms of also ensuring that we don't limit ourselves to that particular objective, and to recall that there are other goals to the Paris Agreement, such as the adaptation goal, but also the financial goal. And financially, the other element is that the 1.8 degrees is still not quite 1.5 degrees. So facilitating the ambition that would enable us to reach that goal is particularly important. Finally, the Right Honourable Lord Provost invited us to come back soon and often to Glasgow. Perhaps next time we'll need to make sure that we arrange our visit to be during the 11 months out of 12 where Glasgow is sunny. But perhaps instead of that, we would want to make sure that we don't do that, because if we combine the warmth of a sunny Glasgow with the warmth of its inhabitants, it might be a bit too hot for us to manage. At this point in time, it is my pleasure to give the floor to my co-master of ceremony, as we are running out of time, quite literally when it comes to climate action, but also when it comes to the process of our day. If she could indicate to us the next steps. Thank you very much.
Hi, hello, good morning everyone, and welcome once again to the University of Glasgow, and on behalf of the Glasgow Centre of International Law and Security and our team of wonderful volunteers from Universities of Glasgow, Strathclyde and Cambridge, very, very warm welcome once again. So I am here to let you know how the rest of the day will play out and how we are planning to run it. So firstly, I just wanted to highlight that if you have any questions, please look for people with yellow or blue or red line on their badges. This is the organizing team, so we are here to answer all of your questions if you have any. Secondly, we will be running this day in 4 parallel sessions. So one of the sessions will take place in this room, and the remaining 3 sessions will take place in Kyoto, Rio, and Paris seminar rooms, which are based on the opposite side of a building. So the best way to access those rooms is through this door, down the stairs, and there are signs to Rio, Kyoto, and Paris seminars. So the program is placed all over the campus. So please just look for the sessions that are of most interest to you, and you're very welcome to attend all of them. We do operate under certain restrictions of capacity, so we might ask you, if we reach a capacity in a certain room, to choose another session. We hope that won't be necessary, but just to pre-warn you. Finally, we have coffee breaks, coffee stations here, and also between the rooms and the other side of the building. So just look for those, and our lunch will be held here alongside other important rewards and celebration ceremonies that we have prepared for you. So thank you once again for coming, and very warm welcome again.
Warmest of thanks to Ayman and to Gigi and to all of those whose efforts have made this day possible. I will call up right away the first session, which is going to be happening in this room, which is Rising Temperatures, Expanding Human Rights and the Obligations of States and Private Actors for Global Climate Justice. And I'll invite everyone else to go to the other 3 sessions that are already starting right now, online and also in person. Thank you.